What might happen next with US China tariffs and how do you prepare for it? Also, Walmart's new handling fees and another new wave of excessive defectives claims. It's all next on The Savvy Supplier. Welcome into The Savvy Supplier, where we save you time and money. I'm Al Frank, alongside Boyd Evert, the CEO of HRG. Boyd, we now have a 90-day extension of the current U.S.-China tariffs. China is paying a baseline of 30% tariffs, and the U.S. is paying 10%. And that's good news for the moment, but two things. One, where do you think this is heading? And two, what should savvy suppliers do in the meantime?
Well, I think the delay is both a blessing and a curse. I mean, the blessing part of it is proposed tariffs that are rather high don't go into an effect quite yet. On the negative side, you extend the uncertainty, and markets hate uncertainty. Retailers, suppliers, everyone hates uncertainty. It's difficult to accrue for uncertainty in this environment because we've seen how the initial tariffs were nowhere close to where a lot of these are landing. So my concern is just we're going to continue to have this uncertainty, and we're heading in, right? We're already in Q3. We're going to be heading into Q4 soon, and I'm hoping that if you have an uncertainty in Q4, that's really going to be a problem because then you really don't know how the year is going to end.
Walmart has a new handling fee for 2025. It was 10% in 2024. Now it's up to 18%. Is there a good reason for that change? Has there been a shift in the way Walmart's handling?
Good question. So that 18% is, I think, exclusively to the grocery category. But I think one of the drivers behind it is that a percentage it's a nice rule of thumb, but it doesn't always work. And so in grocery, usually a much smaller ticket items, right, that you're dealing with usually in the single dollar range. And so the handling of that sometimes, quite honestly, it needs to be at 18%. The problem is on the other end of the spectrum where you have 10% handling on a TV, really. So really you have a $500 TV and it's $50 to handle it, but you may have $1 a head of lettuce that you're having to get rid of, and 10 cents doesn't really do it. So maybe 18 cents is more what they're thinking. But I think this points out the problem of using percentages for handling. There really should be a flat fee. And by the way, one of the major retailers in the drug channel uses a flat fee. And the way it was explained to me about 10 years ago, they take all of the items that they have, just all of the list of items. Maybe they're carrying, 3 million unique SKUs. And they took the amount of returns that they had from the previous year, and then they just divided it by that number and said, well, this is the flat rate. And as I recall, it was right around $2, $2.17, somewhere in that area. Well, some of our clients came to us and said, that is more than the item, right? They're charging us more than the item. And so I think what all of this points out is it is really difficult to assign the true cost of handling an item when you're returning it. And inevitably, since the retailers are the ones that are imposing these fees, they're going to find the method that push comes to shove. They're going to err on the side of the retailer being made whole versus something that's, shall we say, carving reality at the joint. You're just not distorting the way they calculate that fee. So I think that's what the 18% to me is signaling, is that there's a recognition that 10% handling fee doesn't work on the smaller ticket items, but unfortunately, they're not addressing the other end of that scale.
Is that ever negotiable? Can a supplier negotiate a handling fee?
Yes, they can. The 10% handling fee, when I was on the other side auditing on behalf of Walmart, we were told that was just a placeholder. It was introduced around 2003, 2004, that area, maybe a little sooner. The way it was explained to us is that we need to start somewhere. So this is the person that was giving us a tour of the return center, and we were asking questions so we could be better auditors. And as we audited the suppliers to Walmart, it was explained to us that it's a conversation starter. Right? We have to charge you something. Then you fast forward to after I started HRG in 2010, I was told, well, that's really the floor. that's not that's no longer a conversation starter. That's the minimum. Now, in some cases, we were told, yeah, you can negotiate with your buyer to bring that fee down, but we were running into people in merchandising where they were telling us, oh no, it's a minimum of 10%. It might be more. And I think this 18% fee is pointing out that that is indeed the way that they're continuing to think about returns is 10% seems to be the floor. You can negotiate it down, but it's really going to depend upon your relationship with the buyer.
Does Walmart set up a can't lose scenario whenever they negotiate a percentage of defectives with suppliers? When they do that, if the rate of defectives is less than the percentage, Walmart keeps the difference. And if defectives exceed the difference, then Walmart charges the vendor for the difference. It seems to me like a rigged game. Can HRG help the vendor with this?
Yeah, we sure can. So, one of the problems that suppliers face is there is what we refer to in the audit industry as masking, is that you can have some items that are performing, within their defective allowance range, but and you'll have some stores that do such a great job in handling defectives, including how they code them, that they're lower than the allowance given. But then that masks the stores that are higher than that allowance. And so if you look at it in aggregate, you may, let's say that you have for a particular department and sequence number, you're at 1%. You may have some stores that are at 0.5% and maybe even 0.25%, but then you could have some stores that are at 2 or 3%. Unless you're drilling down into that data, you're not going to see it. And then also what we've noticed, one of the trends is not just the store, it's also the time of year. Maybe there's a modular reset, new mod comes in and impacts some of the SKUs. Some of the SKUs are just temporary for that promotion or for that end cap. They don't have a home. They're supposed to be put on clearance and they're not, and they're defected out. So what we can do is at HRG, we can help you understand what is the true defective rate that you're seeing with the retailer, because what we do is we bracket those outliers. We help message the outliers to our client and help them message that message through to the buyer. So essentially what we're doing here is we're communicating what's driving these outliers and what's driving these excessive defectives, or even masking actual defective allowance. We message that back, and we've helped in negotiating a lower defective allowance, in some cases even where they say, we're going to exempt this particular department and sequence from getting excessive defectives, because we know that these items in the past, there has been some abuse at some stores. So there's a way in which Walmart in particular can lock those items so that the stores can't continue to process those claims, that they have to either put them in markdowns or just take the hit.
Why is it that SaaS, the software as a solution, is totally ineffective with helping suppliers to dispute excessive defective claims?
Great question. I think it's because you have these software solutions are made to interface with the retailer's portals. And the retailers' portals can change without notice and negatively impact that tool. So there may be the software that you're using could be working fine for several months or even several years. But as soon as there's a change involved, then that will throw the software off. And so there's going to be a period of time where you're waiting for that update to be pushed back. That's the first sort of basic problem with having a SaaS solution. The second one is probably even more costly, is that if you end up getting into a situation where you're using a SaaS solution for disputing, let's say, shortages, you could end up in what we sometimes call as a doom loop, is that you show that, yes, here we have proof of delivery, it's signed, here's the stamp at the warehouse, and then they repay that shortage, and then they refile that same amount under a different shortage code. So it might be a proof of delivery, and then they repay that proof of delivery and then rededuct it under a concealed shortage. And so that becomes sort of a treadmill. Your software is not going to help you. In fact, some clients that come to us complain that they were using a SaaS solution, and when they encountered these situations where they were constantly redisputing the same amount and getting it kicked back, the company in question responded, well, that's really a relationship between you and the retailer. That's not something that we can help you with. And so you really are on your own. You're given the tool, but you're not going to get any support for any behavior, any insight into why these things are happening. And so here at HRG, we know how to escalate those concerns to the right people, to the right areas within the retailer. So if you are in that place where you're not getting any results, we can certainly help you out with that. And I think the final concern that I would have using a SaaS solution is that's going to tie up headcount, and you're going to still have to work it. It's not, in other words, you have a tool, but you still are having to dedicate people to use that tool. And now you have yet another system for people to learn, right? Because you have your internal systems, you also have the portals for the retailers, and now you're introducing yet another system for somebody to learn, be trained on, and understand how it works. So those are the three major concerns I have.
Let's talk about why HRG is the one and only third-party solution for suppliers on those claims. What are you doing differently at HRG that has made you very effective at recovering revenue from these invalid claims?
Well, I think we know, first off, what is collectible and what is not collectible. There's certain guidelines that retailers use to outline what sort of deductions are open to discussion, and then if they are, what are the ways in which you can dispute those. One important facet of our service is we're not going to waste time chasing money that's just ultimately uncollectible. Two, we're going to be able to escalate those concerns in a very efficient way to get them to the right people, to the right area in the company, to be able to address those concerns and have action taken on those items. And so it's not just understanding, here's the portal, here's where you go. It's understanding the area within the retailer and the hierarchy within the retailer and how to best frame those arguments. So essentially, HRG is going to help you be more effective in the way you use your time. So you're not going to be spending a lot of time figuring these things out. We already understand the inner workings of these different portals and different ways in which deductions are disputed. And so we're going to bring a lot of efficiency to the process. And then secondly, and maybe even more importantly, we're going to give you feedback. We're going to help you understand the root causes and the best practices to avoid them so that you're making wiser decisions and ultimately getting fewer deductions.
Well, Boyd, thank you. That was really a wide-ranging discussion about a lot of different things. I'm sure that some may want HRG to take a look at their particular situation. You can do that by scheduling a free strategy call, by going to the website at HRG-Audit.com, or you can call us at 479-616-1600. You can email us at info@hrg-audit.com. HRG is ready and able to help you. And our wish for you is this: wiser decisions, fewer deductions. See you next time on The Savvy Supplier.